Most people think money is earned. Some think it's attracted, but very few ever realize money is provoked. It moves when something in you dares it to, not by effort, not by repetition, by a silent certainty that doesn't ask for permission. You can hear it in the way certain people talk. They don't chase opportunities. They make statements, and the world rearranges to match them. You've seen it before. Someone speaks, and doors open for them as if reality was listening. You might have called it confidence. It isn't. It's command. And there's one kind of command that every form of wealth, success, and opportunity instantly recognizes. Not because it's louder, but because it's final. That's what you're going to learn here. Not how to wish for money. Not how to manifest it, but how to speak the one sentence that makes it move. Keep listening. You'll feel it before you hear it. There was one night I'll never forget. The kind of night when silence feels heavier than sound. I was sitting at my desk, lights off, just the glow of a laptop screen reflecting off an empty glass. Everything I'd built had started to crumble. Projects, clients, certainty. You know that feeling when your whole life suddenly feels too small for you? That was it. I had done everything right. Every plan, every list, every positive thought. And still, nothing moved. Something in me broke that night. Not in a tragic way. More like a realization snapping into place. I remember leaning back in the chair, staring at the screen, and saying out loud, not even meaning to, "What else do you want from me?" No answer. Just that dull hum of the city outside. Then it hit me. I'd spent years talking to money, but never once had I talked as the version of me who already had it. That small difference felt enormous. It was like remembering a word you've known your whole life, but never used in the right sentence. And when I stood up, something inside me was still, for the first time in years. It wasn't peace, it was authority. Quiet, unshakable, like life had finally stopped negotiating. I didn't know it then, but that night was the first time reality started to listen. There's a moment I think about often, not because it was dramatic, but because nothing about it should have felt important. It was just another night, rain against the window, the soft blue light of a screen, but something in the air felt different, like the world had gone quiet just to listen. I was staring at a number that didn't make sense, a gap between what I had and what I needed. It wasn't huge, but it represented years of trying, failing, almost succeeding, and ending up right back where I started. It's strange how still the mind gets when it finally runs out of fight. I remember feeling blank, not defeated, just done. No plans, no affirmations, no strategies left to test. And in that stillness, a strange thought passed through me. Not a prayer, not even a wish. Just a question. What if it's not about what I do? It startled me, because every book, every voice I had ever trusted said the same thing. Do more, think bigger, work harder, visualize longer. But what if the thing I'd been missing was smaller? What if it was hidden in the space between words, a tone I'd never used before? The kind of tone that doesn't rise or plead. It declares, it knows. I didn't say anything out loud. I just sat there, breathing, listening, as if the air itself was trying to hand me an answer. And then I felt it, that quiet, precise shift in the chest, like the world had moved 1 inch closer without making a sound. Nothing happened that night. No message, no miracle, no sudden wire transfer. But the silence felt different. Not empty anymore. Aware. Like reality had just turned its head and noticed me for the first time. If you felt something shift while listening, that quiet moment when you knew this wasn't just another video, don't ignore it. That's your higher self saying, stay close to this energy. Subscribe now, before that feeling fades. When you start noticing how life moves, you see a pattern that's always been there. It isn't loud, it doesn't chase attention, it works in silence, like water carving its way through stone. Every event, every delay, every strange coincidence follows a rhythm. As if reality itself has a pulse, and that pulse seems to respond only to one thing: tone. Not the sound of a voice, but the energy behind it. The quiet, invisible frequency that tells life what you expect of it. You can see it in ordinary moments. Someone loses a job and panics, and everything collapses at once. Another person loses the same job, shrugs, makes coffee, and within days, something better appears. Same situation, different tone. It's almost cruel how consistent it is. Life never mirrors our words, it mirrors our state. Once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Every conversation, every delay, every random meeting becomes a mirror. And that's when you realize most people aren't living their lives. They're reacting to their own echoes. They think the world is deciding for them, when in truth the world is only repeating what they already whispered into it. That's why everything changes the moment you stop explaining yourself to life. When you stop begging for a reason. When you simply issue one. Not out of arrogance, out of clarity. There's a kind of peace that follows that realization. A steady silence that feels both strange and familiar, like remembering a song you used to know by heart. From there, movement begins quietly. Conversations line up. Numbers adjust. Paths cross that were never meant to intersect. It doesn't feel like magic. It feels like gravity. Natural. Obvious. As if the universe had just been waiting for instructions and you finally remembered how to give them. That's when the stories start. Friends mentioning unexpected bonuses, projects reviving themselves, doors opening without a single knock. They call it luck. But anyone who's felt that rhythm knows it's obedience. Reality has a way of bowing to the one who stops pleading for it to change and simply stands in the space where change is already true. And when you stand there long enough, everything else begins to move. There comes a point where the world stops feeling random. Patterns become impossible to ignore. You notice how the same timing repeats, how the same lessons return until they're learned in tone, not thought. It's like life is testing how you'll respond, not with words but with energy. Every delay, every almost, is a mirror asking, are you reacting or remembering? Because something happens when you stop reacting. The air changes. The pressure that used to follow you lifts. And in that space, you start hearing something subtle, something most people talk over every day. It's not a voice. It's more like awareness with a direction. A quiet intelligence that doesn't argue, doesn't rush, but moves through everything that listens. When that awareness enters your life, it doesn't shout opportunities. It rearranges them. Conversations start to echo the thoughts you haven't spoken yet. People call at the exact moment you think of them. Money moves from unexpected places, as if the invisible part of you finally remembered how to organize the visible. At first it feels impossible to explain. So you don't. You just start walking differently. There's no need to announce anything. You can see the reflection of your new tone in every person who crosses your path. It's subtle, but unmistakable. When you hold certainty, people lower their defenses. When you hold peace, chaos loses interest. When you hold authority, life follows. And you realize something simple. Nothing ever really resisted you. You were just sending mixed instructions. That's when you begin to experiment. Not with techniques, but with presence. You say less. You move slower. You stop chasing the next thing and start watching how the world reacts to stillness. At first it's unsettling. We're taught to equate motion with control, but real control is invisible. It doesn't push. It decides. And decision, true decision, feels like an invisible order quietly leaving your body and shaping everything in its path. That's when you understand. The universe was never waiting for your effort. It was waiting for your signal. You didn't find this by accident. Something in you brought you here. To remember. If even a small part of you knows this message was meant for you, hit subscribe. Let's keep walking each other home to who we really are. There's a moment when stillness starts to speak back. Not in words, in arrangements. Small things shift first. An email you forgot about finally gets answered. A refund clears faster than it should. Someone who ignored you for months suddenly remembers your name. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet rearranging, like reality stretching to make space for a new order. It's easy to miss these details when you're still looking for proof, but when you're calm enough, you see how quickly life mirrors the slightest change in your tone. At first it feels accidental, coincidence, but the timing is too precise, too deliberate. It's almost as if the invisible structure of the world was waiting for the smallest signal of certainty to start its work. And once that signal leaves you, you can't take it back. Everything begins adjusting around it. You notice it in conversation. People repeat your phrases without realizing it. They mirror your rhythm, your ease. It's like reality itself is trying to harmonize with you. Even the things that leave, projects that fade, people who drift, don't sting anymore. They feel organized, as if something greater is sorting what stays and what goes. This is where most people panic. They think things are falling apart. But they're not. They're falling in line. Because once you've issued a silent order, life stops asking for instructions. It begins executing them. You can sense it in the air, a quiet certainty that moves faster than thought. Opportunities begin showing up not as rewards, but as reflections of the tone you now hold. That's when you start to understand. This isn't manifestation, it's communication. Reality is conscious, and it's responding to a language you didn't know you were speaking. And once you remember that language, you can't go back to how things were. You stop chasing outcomes and start listening for movement. It's subtle, but once you notice it, you realize the world isn't testing you anymore. It's following your lead. There's a silence that arrives before everything changes. Not the silence of absence, the silence of completion. It creeps in so quietly, you almost miss it. You wake up one morning and realize that the usual noise in your head is gone. No more questions, no more countdowns. Just a strange calm, like the world has already made up its mind. You notice the difference first in small things. People listen when you speak. Time seems to stretch to fit what you need. Even traffic lights turn green, a second earlier than usual. It's subtle, but consistent, as if reality has decided to cooperate. There's no excitement in it. It's not a rush of, finally. It's recognition, a quiet knowing that life has heard you. You start remembering the moments that used to drain you, chasing opportunities, worrying about outcomes, proving your worth. They feel distant now, like old furniture in a room you no longer live in, because something fundamental has shifted. You're not living from effort anymore. You're living from response. The energy you used to spend trying to make things happen is now building things without you noticing. It's the difference between rowing against the current and realizing the tide is already carrying you forward. Money begins to move the same way. It doesn't rush in all at once. It starts to orbit you. Tiny adjustments, invisible reorganizations, the invoice that clears earlier than expected. The offer that was still being reviewed suddenly lands in your inbox. Numbers rearrange themselves with a strange kind of grace. You don't tell anyone. How could you? It would sound impossible, too delicate to explain. But inside, you feel it. The quiet confirmation that the universe has begun taking orders. And that's the moment you realize how fragile chasing really is. How noisy. How unnecessary. When you finally stop forcing the door open, you discover it was never locked. That's what command feels like. Not power, but permission. Not the ego saying, I can. The awareness whispering, it's done. From that stillness, everything starts to move differently. Calls you were supposed to make come to you instead. The right faces appear at the right time, as if pulled by invisible strings that were waiting for your silence. And deep beneath all of it, there's a single thread running through every event. An instruction that doesn't need to be spoken yet. You can feel it hovering in the background of every sentence, the way a melody hides behind the hum of a song. That's where we are now, right before the note that changes everything. The story isn't finished. It's about to turn. Stay with me. Because in the next few minutes, you'll hear the exact sentence that has been shaping these moments from the start. The sentence that makes money obey. You're not just watching a video, you're waking up. And if this message stirred something alive in you, don't walk away from it. Subscribe right now. Not for more content, but because this is where your new reality begins. There comes a moment when silence turns into understanding. It doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives. The waiting, the searching, the endless adjusting of plans, all of it suddenly feels irrelevant. Because now you see what was really happening. Life was never testing you. It was listening, waiting for you to speak in the tone it recognizes. That's the point where everything slows. Breath steadies. The mind stops asking how things will happen. And something inside you finally says, enough pretending you don't know who you are. In that instant, you realize the truth that all this silence has been building toward. Money isn't distant. It isn't judging you or measuring your worth. It's responsive, completely, immediately, obedient to the state that calls it. And from that place of absolute certainty, one sentence rises. You don't plan it, you don't rehearse it, you just let it speak through you. Wealth answers me now. The words barely leave your mouth, yet they carry the weight of years. Not a wish, not a request, a remembrance. Because the moment you say it, something in the room changes. The air feels charged, as if the world just received new instructions. That's the secret no one tells you. The universe doesn't follow effort, it follows tone, and that sentence holds the tone of completion. Say it once, calmly, and you'll feel what every technique was trying to give you. Closure before evidence, peace before proof. That's the real law. Not attraction, but authority. The awareness that creation finished the moment you declared it done. From here, everything you used to chase begins to chase you. Not because it's magic, but because reality finally knows where to deliver what was already yours. You don't repeat the command to convince yourself. You repeat it to remember yourself. Every time you do, the field aligns faster. Every thought, every interaction, every number bends toward agreement. Wealth answers me now. That's not a hope. It's the final word. Something happens right after the words leave your lips. The mind expects fireworks. But what comes is silence. Not empty silence. The kind that hums, like the air has weight again. You can almost feel it listening back. That's when you realize you're not commanding the universe like a soldier barking orders. You're harmonizing with it, speaking its native tongue. Because those words, wealth answers me now, aren't about money at all. They're about recognition. They tell life, I remember who I am. They tell reality, we're done pretending. They seal the space between I want and I am. And from that moment on, everything moves differently. You don't walk faster. You walk quieter. You don't hope for alignment. You expect it. Doors that were locked stop resisting. Faces that used to ignore you now meet your eyes. Ideas arrive fully formed, like instructions from a higher floor. It's not power in the loud sense. It's influence, presence, a gravity that doesn't pull, it invites. And what's even stranger is how natural it feels. You realize this was never a new ability. It's the original one. The one buried under noise, effort, and doubt. You don't need to repeat the command every hour. You just remember its tone. Carry it like a frequency underneath your words. Because from now on, everything in your world is responding to that signal. It knows who you are. It knows what to deliver. It's already on its way. When you finally understand how life listens, you stop shouting at it. There's no more bargaining. No more trying to convince reality to see you. You realize that reality never ignored you. It was simply matching your tone. Every delay, every struggle, every moment that felt like resistance was the echo of uncertainty bouncing back to you. And now that the echo is gone, everything feels quieter, cleaner, aligned. It's strange how fast peace replaces effort once you stop trying to fix what was never broken. You start moving through the world with the calmness of someone who already knows the ending. Because in a way, you do. You've seen how things unfold when you hold authority instead of doubt. How effortlessly people respond when your words come from presence, not pressure. How the right numbers, the right faces, the right timing seem to orbit you, without a chase, without a plan. That's the proof you were waiting for, isn't it? Not the number in the account, but the weight in your chest finally lifting. The moment you can breathe again without thinking about what's next. Because the truth is, wealth isn't a future event. It's an atmosphere. And the more you rest inside it, the more reality conforms around it. So from now on, you don't visualize to get. You remember to guide. You don't affirm to prove. You speak to direct. Every time you whisper the command, "Wealth answers me now," you're not summoning anything. You're reminding everything. And that remembrance ripples through the field like a quiet instruction that never fades. Even when you're not thinking about it, the tone stays active, threaded through your breath, your gestures, your choices. That's why this work isn't about repetition. It's about identity. The one who commands doesn't repeat. They declare once and move as if the world is already responding because it is. So walk through the rest of this day with that energy. Not the energy of waiting, but the posture of arrival. Look around you and treat everything you see as evidence that the universe is fulfilling an order that was signed the moment you remembered who you are. And if things look the same for a while, that's fine. It just means the rearranging is happening behind the scenes. Every delay you perceive is alignment in transit. Nothing lost, nothing missed. Just timing finding its balance around you. That's the rhythm of command. It doesn't rush. It doesn't chase. It knows. So before you close this video, take one breath. Deep, steady. And in your mind, repeat the sentence one last time. Wealth answers me now. Feel how the words carry weight without force. That's what truth sounds like. And from this moment forward, carry that sound into every interaction, every decision, every room you walk into. Let it travel quietly underneath your day until it becomes the only language you speak. Because the world doesn't need you to ask for more. It needs you to remember you were always the one giving the orders. Now, if this message found you at the right time, let it stay with you. Write the decree in the comments so it anchors deeper. Not for engagement, for remembrance. And if this felt like a breath of clarity after all the noise you've heard about manifestation, subscribe before you leave. Not for more techniques, but for more moments like this. Quiet reminders of who you actually are beneath the effort. Here, we don't chase success, we embody it. We don't hope for abundance, we assume it. And every video here is another reflection of that awareness returning to you. So thank you for staying till the end. Thank you for remembering what most people forget. And thank you for proving, once again, that when awareness speaks, the world listens. Until next time, carry the tone, live the truth, and let reality keep obeying. Because from here on out, wealth answers you now. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.